Soul. Audiences already got a bit of their Pixar taste around the start of the year with Onward, and while that movie may not have been among the studio's strongest efforts, but still well made on its own, that was only the appetizer they set up for 2020. I guess this is becoming more of a common thing with Pixar, but as they put out one feature earlier in the year, they also release another later on that is bigger and is highlighted as the main course. And in this case, it is a curious and experimental film simply called Soul. And ever since the public first heard about it, it immediately landed on many lists of the most anticipated movies of 2020 with many reasons to get hyped up for. The trailer makes it look very promising with possible dazzling visuals. It's Pixar's first movie with a prominently black cast, including the lead with Jamie Foxx, and it's directed by Pixar's chief creative officer and one of their most renowned filmmakers, Pete Docter. With those factors, it seems like the movie could have all the right materials to make something great. But now that it's time for the movie to face the music, is there a soul to be found within Soul? Or did this movie needed a bit more tuning up before playing? Let's find out. The story. Even back when people first saw the trailer to the film, many have made comparisons to this with Docter's previous feature, Inside Out, and when looking at the movie in its entirety, there certainly is a good bunch here. However, what might be unexpected is that the strongest comparisons actually come from the more complex concepts. In the case of the story, it's the blend of a straightforward narrative with philosophy. The plot itself is about Joe trying to literally get his life back in order when an accident caused his soul to leave his body and enter into an astral world that is set both before and after our lives. So he teams up with a pessimistic soul named 22 in order to break some rules and be alive in his own skin. With that story itself, it is well told and easily engaging, where it's mainly character driven as Joe and 22's viewpoint on life progressively change as the movie goes on, along with providing some occasional comedy that can bring out some clever humor, especially with the failed attempts to bring 22 literally down to earth. It also devotes some time to explore the environments that surround them and how they function, like with the Great Before being this facility to help souls find their own identity before becoming alive, and even in New York City to meet people in Joe's life and following his pursuit to becoming a jazz musician, allowing the feature to become immersive and making both these worlds feel believable.
No, it's the Great Before. This is where new souls get their personalities, quirks, and interests before they go to Earth. Here we are.
But then there's the film's philosophical side, and this is where the true substance of Soul can be found. Basically, this is a movie that discusses about life itself. Yes, it does bring up the more common questions like the meaning of life and finding purpose, but for its message, this movie takes an unexpected turn and actually argues that those are not the questions people should be asking. Yes, it is important to follow your dreams, but Soul is saying that this is not what life is about. What the movie is trying to say is that instead of thinking too hard about what to do when you're living and just live, to go out and appreciate that you are alive and that as long as you are happy with what you're doing right now, that's what's important. Technically, there is this whole theme of jazz, but in this case, what the movie wants to highlight is not the music itself, but the concept of improvising on the spot and going with the flow so you can afterwards look back and appreciate that you've done something incredible. And it's with this ideology that fuels Joe and 22's journey to have a true understanding with what they want to do with their lives, whether it be becoming a legitimate jazz musician or to even find a point to living in general. With such thought-provoking writing that can almost be considered unheard of in a mainstream animated film, the movie uses Pixar's signature storytelling to do what many philosophers failed: to stop thinking about the point of living and just do it. The animation. Mind if I ask you something? Have you ever looked at abstract jazz art before? Have you ever seen the way it usually uses lines and colors to not present the band playing, but rather how the band feels when they are playing? This is the art style that the movie is going for with its animation. Yes, there are two massively contrasting art styles happening at the same time, but it's with this jazz theme that connects them together and actually feel like they can seamlessly collaborate to make one cohesive picture. In the living world in New York City, it is true that it's mainly going for realism, and the way the movie achieved it is admirable, but also kind of frightening how it almost looks like a live-action film. With its use of lighting, the fall-like choice of colors, the background designs depicting the suburbs of Manhattan, and the massive crowd sides that keep the streets busy, the film presents an overlooked side of New York that's less about the big buildings and flashy lights, and more about the people that live there in their own little community that are just looking out for themselves and each other.
Don't miss out on the joys of life.
So how does that connect with jazz art or even animation if it's all about realism here? Well, that can actually be found in the characters. Their movements, while limited to the capabilities of the human body, are still expressed lively and full of emotion, while the character designs emphasis more on the shapes that build their look, especially on their face to make them either more round or angular. And then there is the astral plane world, or the great beyond and the great before, where it goes towards the opposite of reality to go completely abstract in its style. The designs are completely reduced to just the most basics of shapes and lines, even to the point that the counselors are made out of just one or two giant lines. The colors get a massive saturation boost, the character animation is looser to be more cartoony, the lighting has its own set of rules when reflected on the souls and the translucent areas, and the environments are creative to develop this training camp of building a personality or to make visual depictions of places that represent statuses of our mentality. This is where it takes the experimental side of jazz art and go all out with its abstract nature and even innovate its way to create a world that no one has ever seen. On their own, the styles look amazing and can also surpass the standards of Pixar to capture a look far greater than what people would expect from the studio. But by combining them together, they result in animation that accomplished so much in just one movie. The characters. As it is a movie about life, there needs to be some lives presented as examples to convey the message it's trying to say, and the main human life to take center stage is Joe Gardner, a music teacher with a passion for jazz music. But after falling down a manhole after being one step away from making his dream of being a jazz musician a reality, his soul goes into the astral world where he cheats death and does whatever he can to find his way back to his body. Meanwhile, he encounters 22, a soul from the great before that refuses to live life on Earth, only seeing the downsides and the problems that come with being alive. She is also a cynic that delivers most of the comedy that surprisingly makes the movie quite funny at times, like when she refuses to cooperate with the historical figures. With these two characters, they represent the two main subjects regarding the movie's discussion about life, what to do in life, and what's the point of living. They may seem different, but they can both go down similar paths and share similar issues along the way, where one is fueled by passion and the other is about combating skepticism.
Spend your precious hours doing what will bring out the real you. The brilliant, passionate you.
The only criticism with it is that it does momentarily get into the generic fish out of water story where the two are in the living world with 22 in Joe's body and Joe becoming a cat, and follows those same tropes like the discovery of pizza or have everyone fascinated by the new version of the person that they thought they knew, along with almost entirely changing their personalities to fit that narrative. However, again, thanks to its strong writing, the movie did manage to pull it off in an enjoyable way, especially with the talks about life that fuel the character development as they progressively transform and have more of an understanding of the subject. As for the rest of the cast, their location determines which part of the movie they contribute, but all help enhance the feature to both grow the main characters and liven up their environments. The ones in the astral planes are more about the world building and helping the narrative to establish the rules of how life works, or in Terry's case, to ensure that everything is in order. As for the people in New York, they reflect as examples regarding living life and help show new perspectives that give Joe and the audience more of an understanding of what it means to live. In a way, they expand the possibilities of the philosophy while still presenting themselves as legitimate personalities that could be found in real life. And that's what's great about these characters. They don't just play a role in the movie in order to be genuine and entertaining, but they also play a role in the movie's message to give them a greater purpose to not just be well-built characters, but inspiring as well. Yes, it's a lot like Inside Out, but there have been very few animated films that tried something new and create something amazing quite like this. Soul is not just another masterpiece in the Pixar collection, but it is also the studio's most thought-provoking and one of their most innovative features they've made. With an intelligent and engaging story about life, phenomenal animation that takes the technology to the next level, and believably inspiring characters, this is a movie that celebrates life itself and gives a new perspective on what it means to live. Of course, this is a must-watch for everyone, where it can be enjoyed by the younger crowd for its visuals and humor, and be appreciated by adults for its smart commentary. Seriously, this is a case where I highly recommend it, especially if you need a boost of motivation or inspiration. Just when you think you've seen it all from Pixar, they find a way to come back and deliver something completely unexpected that can often feel like they can top themselves from before. And that's a moment that always deserves the Animat seal of approval. Now that this movie made me think, and think well, I'm gonna go out and live my life.
See?
Okay, I get it.